tournaments on ACR at the 7-8 o'clock time frame. It's just I rarely have the heart to just keep firing at
Yeah.
that point. So yeah, how's poker been? So you've been like thinking about that stuff and all that.
Yeah, pretty much. I watched a video on YouTube by Brokos,
Mm-hmm.
and it was about big blind defense. And so he was using Poker Pro Tools,
Mm.
and I absolutely loved that. That really resonated with me. I think that's something. I don't know if that's dated at this point, but from what I saw there, just giving me that sense of the spectrum of equities, like I think that's going to help me a lot.
Was
Um,
he was doing it for like flop analysis or pre-flop
yeah,
or?
yeah, exactly. Well, mainly pre-flop. So it's like take a hand like King Nine suited or Jack Seven offsuit,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just run it against the assumed range, and then it shows you that nice curve, and it shows you like what your equity is X percentage of the time, so you can kind of see how basically how that hand flops.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was pointing out in certain situations, he's like, here, a third of the time, I'm going to have 50% equity or more. Like, this is such an easy hand to play. And then other situations, basically the situations where the reverse implied odds are true, where it's like um, the amount of equity that you do have, even when you flop strongly, is still not that much. And so I think just like playing around with that a bunch and then helping, like it's 50 Shades of Gray. I think when it comes to like all these marginal folds, marginal calls. So I
Cool.
think a tool like that over time will really help give me a better footing for it.
Cool. So what I thought we should focus on today, I'm open to suggestion, would be looking at those hands where you defend the big blind and focusing in on your post flop play. Those
Okay,
hands. Um, so yeah, you cool with that?
absolutely. I actually did some digging on just big blind in general. I pulled some reports and stuff, so I feel like I got a little bit further from where we left off last time around, and just kind of knowing my numbers, knowing my DB and stuff. So, but
Yep.
yeah, happy to get started.
Cool. So yeah, share your screen and we'll go over those hands.
Okay. Let's see. Can you start the recording?
Yeah, it's been recording.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. On my shit, Josh.
Always two steps ahead, man.
Um, so I guess so. What's difficult about big blind defense is it's very hard to talk about like flop play in like a general sense. So I want you to like leave the session not with like an understanding of like how to play like this specific board, but more of like how to approach these hands in a future sense, like all hands in a general way. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to accomplish that, but we'll try.
All right, it's a good goal.
So we need that filter that you just like defend the big blind, basically.
Okay.
Go to more filters.
This is pretty close to it, I think.
Okay, it's just there's no you don't have the hand, so you're facing a raise. If you beat then 3-bet. All right, perfect. Yeah, let's do it.
So this is basically everything, right?
Yeah, and don't sort by cards because I don't want to just like see you have pocket twos like 5 hands in a row.
Okay.
And yeah, most recent, good. And if your computer is fast, then you could replay all. Otherwise, like you're gonna want to like not do all 747 hands.
Yeah. Maybe like the last 250 or
Yeah,
something.
we're not gonna get through 250.
Should I sort these based on like, you know, biggest loss or biggest win or
I'm not exactly a fan of that, but I mean, maybe. I mean, maybe we could start like that, like biggest loss, see if there's any like huge, really bad plays. But I mean, that's generally not how I want to approach it. But
okay, let's go with your
Yeah.
your recommendation. That's what I want to do.
Cool. Yeah, and just replay all. I mean, it's not a bad way. I'm just like, I don't know. I don't like doing it that way. I don't have a good argument as to why.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like you're doing highlight hands. It's like watching World Series of Poker on ESPN. You know,
Right.
you're like missing all the
Right.
in between.
That's a good way to put it. All right, cool. So, yep, play it out to the. We're not going to discuss pre-flop. We're just going to like skip pre-flop and then just get to the flop.
All right. I think okay.
Trying to decide if I like your HUD or think it's ugly. I'm not sure.
It's weird. It come on. Resolution wise, I notice it changes a little bit. It's usually not this bad, but
Well, I always comment on my students' HUD whether it's ugly or pretty. So I'm not sure.
yeah.
I like the color scheme, but lots of I don't know. It's pretty big. It takes up too much screen.
Yeah.
But I like
agree.
the use of blue. That was obviously intentional. So you get points there.
Alright, so looks like this was...
This might be a spot where I'd actually think pre-flop's interesting, because I think this guy just has, like, the nuts every time pre-flop.
He does.
Yeah, so I don't think that's a defend. I'm pretty sure he just fucking has it every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't steal off of 15 bigs, especially like a 14/11. But anyways, we can skip that.
Yeah, this was literally a day or two ago, so I think I was inspired to defend everything.
Oh shit,
All right.
with 5 bigs. I like it.
Like I said, inspired to defend everything.
You get the great flop.
Check, 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 check. So, like, when he checks twice here, literally, I was like, okay. I mean, I know sometimes he's going to be nutted on the river, but, like, seriously, check twice. I was just like, alright. If he has 2 pair, it's always like 8s or worse, right? So, I mean, I guess 10s and jacks is all the same, but... so I was just like, alright, we're going to go for it. There's, like, no missed flush draws or straight draws. Hopefully my hand just looks like King X, Ace X, or something like that. And just anybody with a pair lower just finds the fold, the side fold. And,
yeah, I guess he either has the pair of this big slow play.
Yeah. And obviously he's got the...
Yeah.
As advertised, right? So...
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think he either has Ace King, King King, Ace Ace, 9-9, or the pocket pair that just wants a showdown.
And that's what I was trying to think about, which is like, does he have more combos of those random inferior pairs, pocket pairs? Because I mean, specifically Ace King, right? Like Ace Queen, I think he finds a bet somewhere, right?
Yeah.
But, anyway, so that didn't work out, but
makes sense.
All right. So I actually have a little bit of history, or I know of this player, and I think he's a pretty solid. It's pretty solid, generally on the tight side.
Okay, so he bets this board. I guess my question is, I think it's an interesting question you can ask when playing or when studying, is what hands do you think we should be check raising here? As like semi-bluff. Yeah.
Yeah, this actually isn't that bad of a candidate, just because there's 2 overs. I've got a backdoor straight draw on the good side. It can't really look like a flush draw ever. And
forget about this hand. I just mean like, what are like the first hands that come to your mind, like the check raise here? Like, what are the good ones?
What are the good ones to check raise on this flop?
Yeah.
Well, so non-value hands, obviously.
Yeah. And we'll talk about value afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, I think hand obvious strong draws like 7-8,
Mm-hmm.
and 3-4 suited.
Yeah.
I also think that 9-10 and 10 jack are interesting hands because they don't really, obviously they have some 2 overcard value, but they don't really have any value on this flop because you're never really going to make any straights. But then you can target getting ace high and basically broadways to fold with those hands.
Yeah.
So I think a hand like 9-10
There are hands
and
that
10
are better. There are hands that are better than those to bluff though, that you haven't discussed. What are some better hands to bluff with than those?
then 9-10 and 10 jack.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not too sure.
Okay. What makes something a good bluffing hand? Like a good semi-bluff hand?
A good semi-bluff hand?
Yeah.
Well, in the spectrum of semi-bluffs, obviously an open-ender with 2 overs, so like 7-8 would be the ideal semi-bluff hand.
Okay.
But also like a backdoor, so maybe something like an ace-4 suited.
Yep. There you go.
Like maybe a king-7 suited or something like
Yep.
that. So
Yep.
a 3 across, or a 3 straight with a 3 flush.
Yep.
You have a high card in there.
2 overs.
And 2 overs, of course, yeah. For what it's worth.
Right. And then there's like king 7, queen 7, jack 7, 10 7, 9 7. All
Right.
those kind of fall into there.
Yeah.
And those should probably be check raises at this point. And then there's also like you said, the 4x and stuff.
Sure. Hey, Daryl, just to let you know, your audio is coming in pretty light.
Okay, let me grab my headphones.
Okay.
Okay, so the goal here is for like when I ask you this question next time, you're gonna be like, Daryl, like this question's too fucking easy. I know it has a check raise. Hold on. Why isn't this working? The way you improve that is pretty simple, is you just go to flops where you're facing a c-bet and then just think about those hands that you're supposed to check raise. And it's kind of hard to see, and took me a while to see like those type of backdoor type of hands. And we'll look at different boards and different textures and talk about that. So just being able to like immediately realize when you have like queen 7 of clubs, like that's a pretty good check raising hand, instead of just folding, I think is pretty huge. And a skill that actually took me a while to learn. I think I was folding a bunch of those hands, and then I did work with Pile Solver. I've seen it just check raising hands that I didn't really even consider. So I think that's important practice you can do. And you could just run in this filter, so it works pretty well. You could just say you're facing a c-bet too, and just practice going over that. So that's one like study tactic I want you to do, and we'll do some reps together so you get a better feel for it on different board textures and all that.
Okay.
My next question though is, how wide you check raise as a bluff and stuff is still dependent on, if you had 0 value in your range, you couldn't do this, right? You couldn't check raise any of them. So, do you represent a lot of combos of value here? How many combos of value do you think you represent here? How good of a board is this to check raise,
Right. Yeah, I would say it's a much better board to check raise as a semi-bluff or a pure bluff than pure value. It's just...
How many combos of 5x do you think you have at this point?
Well, I have many more combos of 5x than he does,
Yes.
which is interesting. But um, I actually, I mean, on the surface, it's like, okay, what 5x can I have? I can have ace 5, I can have 5, um, 5, 5, 6, 5, 4, and then you can put some suited combos. The thing is, with a rainbow board, there's not very many suited combos. It really kind of cuts through a lot of the 5x.
Right.
Um, so,
Yeah.
you know,
Important question is whether you have like queen 5 off, jack 5 off, 10 5 off, 9 5 off, 8 5 off, and all that.
right?
Do you?
Um, yeah, I think I have ace 5, king 5, queen 5, and then I'm gonna have a lot of suited 5s.
Hmm. Do you have
And then
7 5, 8 5, and 5 3 off?
5, 7, yes,
Hmm.
but that's probably about it. I don't see 5, 3, and 5, 8 against this opponent with this stack depth.
Okay. So how many combos of 5x do you think that is? Yeah, just like tell me a number off the top of your head. You don't have to count it out if you don't want to.
It's just weird with the rainbow flop there. I'm thinking
Hmm.
with 2 5s on the board, but so ace king queen 7 6 4. So I have 6 different types of 5x, suited and unsuited. What is it? This would mean I would have, because there's 2 5s there and it's rainbow.
Hmm.
I would have like a third of those combos or something like that. So
So you multiply how many 5 lefts by how many, like, so king 5, there's 4 kings left and 2 5s left. So
mhm,
4 times 2, 8 combos.
okay. So then I have, I guess, 48 combos.
Yeah, plus the suited ones. Like, that you aren't defending, like 8 5 suited, 9 5 suited, 10 5 suited, jack 5 suited.
Right. Okay. So throw in another
10.
probably 5 or 6. Yeah, 10.
Yeah, with the suited, there's like diamonds and spades are out, so there's only hearts and clubs possible.
Hmm.
So 2 for each. Don't. Did mom say to put them in the cage?
Yeah, because he keeps on eating this puff stuff and he won't leave me alone. Oh, sorry, Hunter.
All right, hold on.
Hunter! Come on.
Don't pull too hard.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on one second.
Sure.
Could you stay?
Okay, close the door. Okay. So you have quite a bit of combos of 5s. I guess you don't have any overpairs. Josh?
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about that. Would I flat any overpairs pre big blind 600, 20 bigs, 21 bigs? I could have a few overpairs here.
Okay.
7s and 8s.
And are you ever check raising like a6?
Probably not.
Right.
Not nowadays.
Yeah, that's probably fine. Okay, so it's hard to say like hard and fast rule for like how many bluffs you want and how much value, and I don't really try to get it perfectly. But I know if I rep like a decent amount of value, I can put in like a decent amount of check raises and all that. So given like the hands we talked about that we could raise as a bluff, given the hands we have to raise for value, what do you think of check raising this board?
I think it's pretty good. I think it would be balanced. Um, I would prefer if this was like king 8 suited.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to take this hand, right? We
Yeah.
mentioned a ton of combos that are better than this one, right?
Right.
So part of big blind play is not doing shit with hands you don't need to, because once you start raising garbage like King 8, like what's to stop you from raising King 9, King 10, and Queen 10, and Jack 10, and any King 7, and then all of a sudden you just have this crazy super aggro out of line range. You're just being really out of line and playing a bad strategy.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can raise pretty wide here, but you don't have to go King 8, I don't think. And King 8 suited would probably end up being a call.
Yeah, especially with his bet sizing. I mean, he's literally permitting me to call. So
Yeah, for sure. Okay, let's go to the next time.
all right.
Well, do you have any questions, actually?
No. That was good.
Okay, cool.
All right. Somehow I find ace king in the big blind here.
And flat?
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Nothing interesting
That
here.
shouldn't be in the sample. That's weird. But yeah, go ahead. Because you did biggest raise like 2.5 big blinds. That's why it shouldn't be in there. It's weird.
Oh yeah.
Maybe because he was small blind and already had. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Oh, a thing we should do is go back to your database. Go to position. The tab.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's moving kind of slow right now.
Yeah, it happens. I wanted to see your BB per 100 from the big blind, and that is not a perfect way, but a cool way we can measure progress if that starts to get lower.
Okay.
So I imagine you're around like negative 45 or 50 or something at this point from the big blind. So. Okay, so you're like negative 38, and we'll keep that in mind, and that's something we can kind of track and see if you're getting better at.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I check. He checks back. Pretty sweet turn.
Yeah, so he checks back there. This is an interesting spot. Like, what should be the hands? What should be the hands we bluff here?
Bluff on the turn
Yeah.
after the check back.
Yeah. Actually, let me start with a different question. How do you split up like what kings you check and what kings you bet here? Or maybe I should backtrack a bit. How do you feel about having a king here? Like any king, say king 3 or whatever.
I feel pretty good. I think the check back on the flop is. I just kind of think of it as like a nuts or air spot. I mean, for him to check back, like when he has a strong hand, like he can have check backs in his range when he's strong. But what does that really look like? Like aces, even ace king, I think finds a bet on this flop just because it's got a high degree of connectivity, suitedness, and just straight draws, gutters galore.
Yep.
So I feel good. I feel very good with my king. He also has not an outrageous c bet, but he has a pretty strong balanced c bet, which means he should be c betting a lot here.
And what other hands do you think he's checking back?
I think he's going to check back hands like nines and eights. He's trying to get to showdown and peel a turn card that improves so he doesn't get blown off. I think he can obviously he can have some gutters too, like 8-9 and maybe 9-jack. I don't know about ace queen or ace jack. Actually maybe he does check those back. He wants to pot control those. And then yeah, I think that's what it looks like. Maybe some 10x as well.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good summary. So, given that range, you probably feel pretty good with your king X's and stuff.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Do we ever check a king? Should we ever check a king versus a range like that?
Check a king on the turn?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the perfect turn card to check. Because it changes nothing for him, but it just, like, puts a lock on my equity if he, like, whatever Jin card he's looking for on the river, it could completely nut me up. A few of them, at least. So, yeah, it's really hard for me to lose equity. So given that my equity against that range is pretty high, I guess the thing about checking here, especially out of position, is just like I'm not betting because I'm afraid he's going to get there on me. I'm betting because I'm just trying to get some chips into the pot, and I understand he has to have something. He has to have something to call something, much less a second barrel on the river. But when you look at this board, there's open-enders, there's gutters, there's 2 flush draws. You can even feel pretty decent with any 10x, obviously. Even nines isn't going to fold for this bet here. So the way I see it, I just kind of felt like I had more motivation to bet here, understanding that his range is quite weak.
Right. Yeah, I'm just, yeah, I guess we just bet, like, our every king we have all the time. And bet, like, 10x's and stuff, too. And then, but that, like, what's our checking range then? Just anything, like, really weak 10s, 6x and deuce x?
I still think I lead 10x.
Oh, you bet, like, all your 10s.
Yeah.
So our checking range is basically the best hand in our checking range is a pair of 6s.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Is that okay? Like, so do you think that's an exploitable range?
Yeah, it's definitely exploitable. I mean, when you flip it, it's like I should be betting those hands. My 2x, my 6x, my king x definitely should be comfortably in my checking range, and then my 10x, maybe that's mixed. Maybe like you said, I bet my weaker 10s and I check with my stronger 10s.
Why do you want to check with your stronger 10s? Why do you want to bet with your weaker 10s, I mean?
Because with my stronger 10s, I'm less likely to block some of his combos, especially overcard combos. And with my weaker 10s, I unblock them. So essentially, I'm charging a premium.
So for example, like 10 jack, it blocks. You're blocking ace jack. That's what you're saying. So you don't want to bet 10 jack.
Right, exactly. I can keep in. I'm only fearing, the ace. I guess the ace or the queen, but yeah, jack X. So if he has queen jack, ace jack, somehow 9 jack. Well, 9 jack, he's dead in the water. But there's more combos that I block that strengthen my hand even when his hand improves. So, but like 10-5 suited, for instance, now I'm legitimately concerned about, say, 6 to 9 outs. I can't unblock anything.
Yeah, so the problem with blockers is that it's more of, it usually has less effect on the hand than other factors like equity. So blockers is more of like an advanced concept. And so the way I view blockers is that people shouldn't be thinking about blockers unless other things in the hand are set in place. So for example, or if like it's easy to think about everything that comes before that. So what's more important to me is like equity. So for example, which hand has more equity when called? You know, Jack 10 or 10-5 here. And you know the obvious answer is Jack 10, right? And it's probably quite a bit of a difference. Agreed?
Yeah, of course. Yep.
Right. So that's generally to me the bigger factor. And it probably is like a much bigger factor rather than blocking a few combos of a small part of his range. So the general rule is you think about equity first, and you probably end up betting your bigger tens here, and then checking the smaller tens because of that.
Okay.
It's just a much bigger variable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And the same would be true for your kings, but it's just such like a nutted hand. You should probably just bet every single time you have a king.
Just full range, bet king.
I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. It really depends. Yeah, let's go to a flop hand. Let's not get focused on the turn, actually. I think that was a mistake to focus on turn. Although the hand was interesting. Like, let's not think about turn spots, because that's a bit confusing. You should just value bet river here. Oh, you check? Oh, yeah, you should have just value bet river, but I guess he's... What is he doing? I don't even know what he has. River 2 pair? Ace 10, yeah. That makes sense. Alright, go to a different hand. We'll just look at flops and stuff.
Okay. So again, I'm peeling our knit over here.
Yeah, that's fine. He's not like super short, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so what would be the hands you would want to check raise here as a bluff? Or what are the best hands to do it as a bluff?
I guess a hand like, so so when you say bluff,
Semi bluff, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, bluff is the wrong word.
So-
I shouldn't say that.
so part of me actually thinks that flush draws play better as a call, in some cases, but I guess the weaker ones. Let's think about this. Well, a good semi-bluff check raise here. Beef. I'll just spin them out and then maybe I'll put them in order. So 5-7
Mm-hmm.
is one that could be check raised.
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of weak flush draws, like I have 2-5 suited, 2-4 suited, 5-7 suited, obviously. So 3x suited.
Yeah, with clubs, you mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously ace x of clubs.
Mm-hmm.
And probably even king x of clubs for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, maybe 4 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then I guess maybe a hand like, I'm a little unsure about this, but maybe a hand like ace 5 or ace 7 of diamonds.
Yep, very nice. Yeah, that's a good one. especially if you don't feel comfortable calling.
Right.
Yep. Yep, there's some more.
So, um, okay. Well, I mean, with that said, I could take the other side of it too, like ace four diamonds, and then maybe some kings and queens.
Hmm.
King high flush draws, queen high flush draws.
Like clubs,
So
you mean?
things. Yeah,
Hmm.
exactly.
Hmm.
Things like that.
Right.
Is there a group that
Yeah.
jumps out at you that I haven't touched on?
Yeah, just more of the 5 and 4x of diamonds with like the overcard. So those are going to be good. So king 5 of diamonds, king 4 of diamonds, queen 5 of diamonds, queen 4 of diamonds
Hmm.
should also be in there. Um, Another one is probably king queen with king of clubs or king queen of diamonds.
Hmm.
So just one club. So those would be the type of candidates you have for check racing. My other question is, what do we have a lot of value, or is this a spot where we just have significantly less value at this point?
You mean with Jack four?
No, I mean like what hands would we check raise or value? Like how many combos can you think of?
Right. I don't really have very many two pairs.
Hmm.
It's pretty hard. I mean,
What?
maybe a couple suited
Well,
combos.
if you're defending Jack 4, you'd probably defend Jack 4 off. You're probably defending Jack 3 off, Jack 6 off.
That's true. Um, there's basically half the combos there though, but
Hmm.
um, so yeah, my two pair combos, my sets. Obviously, I don't have jacks, but I have sixes and threes.
Hmm.
Um, and then I could have a hand like king jack or queen jack. I think I'd be more likely to raise my queen jack and call with my king jack.
Why?
Um, because my queen jack, I don't block. Basically, I don't block aces and kings or
Go to equity first. Which one has more equity when called? If you raise King Jack or Queen Jack?
which has more equity when called.
Yeah, if you raise and get called.
In a vacuum or considering ranges.
Ranges.
Oh, I would think queen jack.
So you think Queen Jack has more equity when he calls your raise?
Right, when he calls my raise, yeah.
What hands is Queen Jack doing better than King Jack?
Oh well, I'm sorry. I didn't think that all the way through.
Hmm.
So yeah, when I have king jack, obviously I beat queen jack. When I have queen jack, I lose to king jack. So
Yep. So equity, far more important than blockers. Blockers is like you're blocking, what percentage of his range is aces and king? What percentage of his range is like kings? And then there's like reverse blockers you're not even thinking about as well. So blockers is like usually just a really small, like 1 or 2% effect. Whereas like difference between king jack and queen jack here is probably, 5, 6, 7% or something.
okay.
And the blocker thing might even be like less than 1% here.
Hmm.
So always like part of thinking well about poker is thinking about the more important things first. Um, and understanding what's most important. So
Sure.
let's go back to your value. So you think you would raise king jack here?
I don't. I don't. I think I prefer a call
Mm-hmm.
to a raise.
Yep. Right.
Um,
Ace jack?
no. I call ace jack and king jack.
Yeah. So you don't have any of those in your value. So your value
Yeah.
range is like jack 6, jack 3, 3, 3, 6, 6.
Yeah, and maybe like Jack 4, Jack 5, Jack 7, maybe those play a little bit better as calls, but when I start getting into like Jack 8, Jack 9, Jack 10, I start to think that those might be better hands to check raise.
Just a matter of equity again. Which has better equity when called? Jack 8 or Ace Jack? You know, obvious answer is Ace Jack again, right?
Yeah, but I think that's only one part of it, right?
What's the
Like
other
if you're
part?
the other part is a definition / denial line, right? So it's like if I'm owned with a jack here, it's going to be a lot cheaper for me to figure that out now as opposed to a cumulative effect on the turn or river, right?
How do
So
you prove that it's cheaper?
um, well, it's kind of controlling the bet sizing. Out of position. Um, when I have a hand like Jack 8 or Jack 9, so there could be some math and theory to this, but the feeling is it's easier to try to get definition in this type of a spot than it is to essentially just kind of, I don't want to say blindly call barrels, but basically commit to calling barrels. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, so let's think about the last thing you said, committing to calling barrels, right? What are the other possible outcomes if you call with Jack 8 here? What are the good possible outcomes if you call with Jack 8 here?
If I just call with, well, then I keep worse hands in.
Right. Well, not what are the good aspects. What are ways the hand can play out with Jack 8 that's actually favorable for you? Because you mentioned one example, a bad example. You call, he bets turn, you call again, he bets river, you have to fold. What's a good example? What are examples of you calling with Jack 8 and winning here? How would that hand play out?
I could turn an 8.
Yep.
He could check back.
Yep.
I could turn a 5.
Mm-hmm.
Or a 4. Or I guess we have Jack 8.
Yeah,
Never
we have
mind.
Jack 8. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's not too many scenarios. It's pretty binary. It's like I turn an 8 where he checks back.
Mm-hmm. There's more.
I mean, you could say I turn a jack, which theoretically should mean that he's that much less likely to have one.
Mm-hmm.
And now I actually beat. Yeah, now I actually beat over pairs
Right.
that had me destroyed that I was worried about.
Yep. There's that example. There's more. Keep going.
Yeah, that's I'm kind of blanking any further.
Okay. Are there any scenarios where you win when he bets the turn? And you don't, turn's not an 8, but you call a turn bet.
Yeah, I mean, he'll probably continue to barrel his flush draws. He may barrel some broadways.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so he bets turn, and then how do you win after calling?
After I call the turn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then it's river play, so by that point, I mean, at that point, I'm just like I'm evaluating river,
Mm-hmm.
just the texture, whatever it is. There's going to be favorable boards and unfavorable, right?
Yeah. So same ways you can kind of win is like he can check the river, right?
Yep.
If you call turn, he checks the river, and you have the best hand, you win.
Mm-hmm.
You can river.
Yeah.
You can river an 8. You can river a jack.
Yep.
right? So the ways you could win. So you just mentioned one example. You call Jack 8, he fires 3, you lose. There is all those you mentioned. You know, he can check back turn, check river, you can win. He could check back turn, you can value bet river and get a call on some runouts and win. He can check back turn, bet river, and potentially you can hero him. Maybe you call there and win. You can obviously hit your 8 or jack on the turn or river. He can bet turn, give up river. And sometimes he bets turn, bets river, and you feel okay calling the river bet unimproved. So there are many ways you can win by. There are many different things that can happen when you call, and I'm sure like you've experienced all of them through playing. And this is a conversation I have with lots of my students because they just whenever they're in spots they just think about the bad outcomes that happens, so they just remember the times where their opponent barrels off, or they just feel like their opponent always barrels off after they call with a weak pair. And or they feel like whenever they 3-bet here, their opponent just always shoves or something like that. We're kind of just hardwired to only remember the negative shit that happens, or to think in like negative terms. So we kind of have to fight it by thinking about all the different possible outcomes, the positive ones.
I think the notion, and I get that. I'm on board. I think the notion stems from I'm out of position. I'm playing against a tight player who shows down very well.
Mhm.
So in this type of scenario, I'm inspired for like,
Ashley,
am I
close the door,
dominated?
please.
Like, am I ever gonna get a check?
Ashley, close the
right?
door.
When I call here, like, what does that mean? Like, does he find the courage to just barrel? In which case, you know, obviously I would fold. Like, I would call turn cards that aren't awful
Mm-hmm.
for my hand, and then by river, if he's still betting, I'm just gonna fold. But given his stats, I mean, I don't know how I exploit him by calling, right? So, so yeah, I think like if you were to say like if this was 5 to 9 or 8-bit, it's a little bit different. Like I'll let them hang themselves. I'll let them barrel. But with this guy specifically, it just doesn't feel right. Oop, what's happening here?
Okay, so let's like zero in on a specific hand, right? Let's say he has queen queen. Tell me how you save money by raising here, rather than calling.
Because I fold to his ship on the flop.
Okay, so you raise to how much do you raise to?
It's kind of crapping out. Okay, there we go. So I probably go to about around pot 3x them, so like maybe 6,500.
Okay, so
6,700.
Okay, so when he has queens and you raise, you lose 6,700, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you don't get to see turn, you don't get to see river. Now, when you call, right? You have queen queen. I mean, he has queen queen. You call. You invested 2,300, and then what happens on the turn?
So on the turn, I check probably 100% of the time. I miss.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I miss like what 85% of the time.
How much do you think he bets on turn? Let's start with that.
So he bets half pot on the flop. So we have 92, call it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking I see a half pot bet on a minimum on the turn. I actually think his sizing would be larger.
Yeah, let's
on the turn.
Yeah, let's say
2/3 maybe.
Yeah, let's say he goes like 5-6K on the turn, right?
Yeah, 6.
And let's say you call every turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you fold every river unimproved, right?
Okay.
Okay, so in a scenario A, you lose 6,900 and you never win the hand, right?
Right.
Well, let's say just 7K, you never win the hand. The other scenario, you put in 8,300, you get to see all 5 cards, right?
Yep.
How much better is scenario A, or is scenario A better?
Well, the other side of the equation is, so I'm investing. So there's a 400 chip investment in between, taking an abandoned line versus taking a. I think there's some value here enough of the time, right? Like it's going to pay off enough of the time. But then the other part of the equation is at river. What do I do, right? So unimproved, I fold 100% of the time
Mm-hmm.
when he bets, um, and even when I do improve, I don't win 100% of the time. Um,
Well, in our hypothetical scenario, he has queen queen, so almost
oh,
every
okay,
time you improve, unless like the
okay,
board pairs, like it's a 6 and then an 8 or something.
right. So let's just say that I improve like 18% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
maybe 20% of the
Yep.
time.
And you get a stack every
So,
time, probably. If that happens.
yeah, okay, that would be huge.
Right. So scenario A, you lose about 7K. Scenario B, depending on his bet size, you lose between 7 to, I mean, you might fold to a really big bet on the turn, but you lose 7 to, I don't know, 8 or 9K or something like that. But you also win the pot 20% of the time, or something like that.
Right.
Also, there are scenarios where you actually fold turn, like if he bets on a king or ace turn, which I'm not sure that he would, but if he did, you would save money there by folding as well.
Yep.
So the EV difference between calling and raising is probably the advantage goes to Jack 8. I'm not exactly sure, but I would guess the advantage goes to Jack 8 when he has you beat. Just calling.
Hmm.
I mean, it's kind of hard to argue like he has me beat, I'm going to raise, and that's like a more EV line. So I feel pretty confident that you're losing money by raising when he has you beat.
Right.
I mean, I think that has to be the case because so like 80% of the time you're losing like 7 or 8K, right? And then let's say 15-20% of the time you're stacking him for all his chips, right? So
Hmm.
I think it has to be more profitable. So you're costing yourself money when he has you beat. Um, so you'd have to have an argument for like when he doesn't have you beat, right? Let's say he has um, just some non-paired hands. Are you making significantly more by raising?
Well, equity denial is a part of the equation too. So
Mm-hmm.
when he has ace king, ace queen, and I get those hands to fold, that's a pretty good result. Um,
Yep, agreed.
so
Is
there's,
it better than is it significantly better than just if you just called? That's the question.
um, no, no. Obviously, if he has ace king or ace queen, he's got like 25% equity. If he's got a club or two club, well, if he has two clubs, then it's a totally different equation. But with a club, in the backdoor straight draw, yeah. So it's still better for me to check call. But
Not well. What if he always three barrels ace king and you always fold river? Then you would end up just losing almost every time versus ace king, right?
yeah, but then I think about this player,
Mm-hmm.
and I just don't think he does that often enough.
Right. So that's a really good point. It's like really player dependent. So like if somehow you're playing against a guy who's three barreling all those like air hands and you're folding river, then your call is actually negative EV. Um, I was doing a coaching session with someone, and he brought up this interesting point. So he ran a spot in Pio Solver, and his opponent's range was Ace Deuce and 10-9. His hand was pocket tens. He didn't even have a range in Pio Solver. He just had pocket tens, right? And then the board was Deuce Deuce Deuce. So either his opponent had quads or 10-9 when he had pocket tens. So like either he was like completely bluffing, with no chance of winning, or he had the absolute nuts and he had no chance of winning. And the way it was that so his opponent bets flop, right? And so in PI Silver, his opponent bets flop, and we could see that he has 65% equity versus his opponent's betting range, but he still should fold pocket tens on the flop.
He should fold them?
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
It's the same principle you're talking about, in that the guy always gets to bluff those hands and he gets to play kind of perfectly with them, so he can't even realize that EV. Like all that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, all that EV is like for nothing if he's not capable of calling that river bet, or if he's not calling the river bet. And it's actually a situation where he can just perfectly make him indifferent on the river. I mean, I don't fully understand it, but the principle is like this is really player dependent. So like,
right,
if you somehow get in a situation where you're against the opponent who you feel like can three barrel off and he's capable, but you don't feel like you're capable of calling, that can kind of make sense for a raise, potentially, but versus a player like this, it doesn't really make too much sense.
right.
But you have to be pretty strong in that read, because if he's not firing those three barrels as often as you think, you're really costing yourself a lot of money by raising, I think. Because you're just giving him, you're giving him all this money when he has you beat by raising Jack 8. Every time he has a better Jack, that's a ton of combos. Every time he has an overpair, every time he has a set, you're just like giving him all this extra money.
Right.
So you really would have to make up for it with all those equity denials and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, I don't. Let's go to another hand.
Okay.
Oh, so my point on that board. Let's go back. So let's go back to that board.
To the last flop?
Yeah. So that's the same hand.
Oh, sorry.
You're the worst. I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm pretty bad with this.
You're fine. So, which is a better board for check raising? As like a semi bluff, the 5-5-6 or this Jack 6-3, and why? Or which is a better situation, rather? I shouldn't say better board.
Which is the better situation to check raise?
As a semi bluff.
I think the 5-5-6.
Why?
Well, because he never has a 5x, and I can have a 5x,
Yep.
which can really slow him down. It can buy me a card later.
Yeah, so that's nut combo advantage.
Nut combo advantage, is that what you said?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's what I made up. I mean, other people call it that too, so yeah. But it's,
okay.
I mean, it's pretty explanatory. But yep. So you have nut combo advantage. What else? What else was better about that situation?
I think I just get more folds.
Why?
I think his perception of equity. So when he has overcards, which is what he's going to have more often than pairs. His perception is that he's going to have very low equity or no equity. And in this spot, he can easily have overcards a lot, but still feel good about having a significant amount of equity. So I think I just get more folds from the prior hand off of, than this board, just in straight like overcard equity.
There's another key thing here. Well, there might be one or two.
Well, in this spot, I actually have a hand. So
Forget about the hand. It's all like range and situation.
oh, okay.
Your hand doesn't exist.
Yeah. Well, in the prior hand, obviously, just the board favors me. The flop favors me, and in this situation, I mean, we talked about I could have two pairs and sets and stuff, but generally speaking, I think this flop favors him a lot more.
Why do you think it favors him more?
I think more often he has better Jack X than I do, and he has overpairs and I don't. And he even has mid pairs like tens and nines, and forget that I have Jack 4, but he'll even have sevens plus and stuff, and I don't.
Right.
So yeah, he just has a lot of one pair. This flop is good for basically one pair.
Right.
And he has a lot more of that than I do.
Okay, so here's a stupid question. How often would you check raise bluff him if I told you the only hand in his range was Jack Jack? Pocket jacks, yeah.
0%.
Right. And why is that?
Because it would never work.
Right.
And I don't even have a backup plan.
Right.
I do, but I'm not as big as my imagination is. This would not be the scenario.
Right.
So
how, given his range, it's very unlikely to work. And there's another principle in there that the stronger your opponent's range, the less likely, the less inclined you are to bluff him. Right? So this is a scenario where your opponent's opening a very tight range, lots of overpairs and shit like that. He's going to be pretty fucking strong. And he only c-bets like 50%. I don't know how big that fucking sample is, but whatever. So that is the second problem. Much stronger range. He has a much stronger range than the other guy. So you're going up like this uphill battle, so you don't want to battle him. And the third aspect is, like you were saying about think about how many big hands you mentioned in the other scenario, in the 5-5-6, and compare it to like this Jack 6-3. Like, what situation did you have more big hands?
in what situation would I have more big hands?
More nutted hands, yeah. Did you have more nutted hands on the Jack 6-3 or the 5-5-6?
I would think the 5-5-6.
Yep.
Just because.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just because we said that I have like 58 combos of 5x, or something like that.
Right. So.
Whereas here, my sets, it's very small, and my two pairs. Yeah, it's all like a fraction of that, right?
Right. And what's also interesting is that when you have the 5x, you almost never lose, whereas like Jack 3 and Jack 6 aren't exactly invulnerable either. So your nuts like aren't even as strong,
Yep.
So these are two drastically different scenarios. On one board, you have more nutted combos, but you also have the nut combo advantage. You have more nutted combos than he does. In this situation, you have less nutted combos, and he has nut combo advantage. In the other situation, the equities were like pretty close. Your opponent was opening a wider range, c-betting a wider range. In this situation, your opponent's opening a tighter range, probably c-betting a tighter range. Um, and so yeah, how often do you think you should check raise bluff a board like this?
We're not talking about Jack 4, right?
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
just a pure bluff
Semi
now.
bluff, sorry. Whenever I say bluff,
Oh.
just assume I'm retarded. It means semi bluff.
Oh, okay. No, I mean it's valid. I think, yeah, not in this situation, but I don't think I should be check raise bluffing as much,
Mhm.
given everything you just said.
Right. So playing out of the big blind, a big aspect of it is knowing what boards to check raise, what boards not to check raise. There are some boards where you need to be check raising, like GTO wise, 30% or more. And there's some boards where you check raise like 5%. And not check raising with the right hands and not check raising often enough is a really big equity killer, especially if you can't follow. So, like, if I ran a PIO solver and, like, I was supposed to check raise like 30% and then just called a bunch instead, um, that wouldn't cost me that much because it would just play turn and rivers perfectly. But for us, like mere humans, playing the rivers is really fucking tough, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really hard when you're not check raising properly and check raising enough, and being able to like tease out when those 30% check raise boards come up and just piling on them like that 556 board uh, is going to cost you a lot of equity because especially when you're not going to get like the river right. So what I want you to practice is looking at these boards, analyzing the situation, um, and analyzing how good it is. And do you have something to write this down?
Yeah.
Okay, so I want you to think about, how many nutted hands you have. I'll wait till you're ready. Well, you tell me what stuff you should think about when studying on your own. When looking at these spots on your own, rather.
Um, all right, I'll take the freebie that you gave me.
Yep.
So I should be thinking about. I like the combinatorics aspect of it.
Mhm.
So it's just like, well, I guess it starts with range advantage.
Mhm.
And so I guess the root question there is, who does the board favor?
Right. It almost always favors the big blind for what it's worth, but some cases it's not as bad. So yeah, go ahead.
So from there, I want to think about combos, and so my value, my semi-bluff,
Mhm.
and then my no equity, which maybe doesn't get as much merit,
Right.
but
Yep.
then I'm thinking about when I'm thinking about board texture, I need to think about like what can I rep.
Mhm. Yeah, which is like a matter of combos and value, same thing.
Okay.
And I guess that's it. I mean, when I would say range advantage and who does the board favor, think more of like this. Um, well, I guess I'd be more explicit about combos. Like the more value you rep, the more you can bluff, and just being able to like tease that out. Um, the other thing is figure out what your best bluffs are. What are your best semi bluffs rather? Being able to figure that out quickly. So what you can do is go through hands like this and practice finding the bluffs, finding like the really good bluffs, and you can, if you're interested in stuff like this, like you can kind of like time yourself and see yourself like being able to do it faster and faster. Because you don't have a ton of time in game. You want to be able to like do this like really fast. Me personally, I don't like timing myself. I like to kind of just get a feel for it. Um,
Hmm.
but you want to like get in reps and see that improvement, whether you want to time that or just feel it out. You want to be able to count the bluffs really quickly. So personally, you can break these down into like different training exercises. So instead of trying to do all these things at once, you can just have a session where you're practicing figuring out like what your good bluffs are. And then you could have just a session where you're practicing just figuring out the good how many value combos you have. Then you could do another session where you're just thinking about range advantage, because you don't want to attack this Jack 6-3 board versus a nit, so like that's going to be important. Um, and then it's a matter of putting it all together. So like the way to put it all together on the flop is like being able to like know who has nut combo advantage, how many nut, a vague sense of how many nut combos you represent, who has range advantage, and what hands you should be bluffing. Like that's putting it all together. That's what it should look like. And
Hmm.
the goal is to be able to do that in a matter of seconds and while playing multiple tables.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. And the way this is built up is through like just getting in reps. And what's good is that this type of work works for every single spot. Like if you practice counting your combos in this situation, that doesn't mean like, when you get to a situation where you're the pre-flop raiser or you're in a 3-bet pot, like you won't be like that skill's not going to cross over. It's like perfectly crosses over. So don't think you're just working on one skill. You're working on post flop. You're improving your ability to think about post flop in every situation. In every situation, this is a factor. This is a variable. Who has more nutted hands? How many nutted hands do you rep? Who has range advantage? So, like, you're not just isolating a certain skill, but you kind of are.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, you can do this in many different ways. Maybe you prefer doing it in a way where you're thinking about everything at once. But my tip or my advice from my experience is just do it in the way that seems the easiest and has the least amount of resistance, so you're actually putting in the reps. Um, Trying to make things too hard and too difficult is not my style. I personally just try and make things fun, but like I'm also a seventh grade dropout and I never had to like do hard shit. I just played poker for all my life, so I just like not good at doing hard shit. If you're good at doing hard shit, then by all means, like, add on, like, you got a fucking MBA and shit, so you must have done a lot of really hard, grueling work. So it's probably a skill you have more developed than I do.
No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. I know what you mean. I mean, I think you're right. I mean, you just got to put in the time in the lab.
Hmm.
Um, so those are good
Yeah.
exercises. I actually really like the way you set that up, and that was going to be something that I was going to ask or suggest, which is I want to walk away with each session where you basically say, okay, here are the exercises, or here are your action items. Um, when we were playing around pulling reports last time, I was starting to look at just like a lot of like what are my win rates, just like in a different context, right?
Hmm.
So this is all big blind. This is like macro level. So now I know, like, hey, I think before what did? Oh yeah, it was like all hands. I don't even know if this is right. I thought we looked at it before and it said
Oh, because we did just
negative.
did like the shittiest hands.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, just doing that exercise got me to thinking like, well, how am I playing my ace X? Like, where am I getting killed? And to no surprise, now again, not very many trials, but um, I was actually surprised that I was actually doing okay with Oh, okay, this is all mixed in. That's why it's like that. It goes suited, unsuited. But I just like I need to know where I stand
Hmm.
with different types of hands and stuff. So, something I found really interesting is I'm actually getting killed with unsuited broadways, and I think probably a
You,
lot of that is
you're
because I'm
actually
not three betting.
you're not getting killed, I don't think, because like if you folded, you would have lost 110, right?
Yeah, but
You're not like doing well though. You're doing better with like all the other hands.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I would expect to do better.
right. That is weird though, and that is kind of like a big sample, decent sample at least.
I think it's because I'm just always calling. I just don't. I mean, I guess I can run a report that says show me when I'm three betting, but my unsuited, I just don't think I'm doing it.
Right. Okay. So yeah,
So
you have your exercises. I just don't want you to be like the person who's like New Year's resolution, let's hit the gym, and then they like hit the gym really hard and they get really sore. Like fuck, I don't want to go back to the gym again. And then they're done. So, but I don't know. It's really like a matter of temperament. So for me, a big skill is learning how much to push yourself and how much you could take on. If you push yourself too hard, that just has like negative results. Push yourself too little, like negative results. So like getting a feel for what interests you, what keeps you going, what gives you momentum for future days, and all that. It's important.
yeah, and just so you know a little bit about me, that's exactly right. Like if you send me to the gym, um, I might be, and you develop like a routine for me. Here's some cardio, here's some weights, etc. Like I might be good about it for a few days, but I end up sucking. But um, basketball, you know, racquetball, a few different sports, like I could play it every single day, and I could commit to something like that. So I think you're right. I think it's finding what gives you the energy. Um, but with that said, I have some habits to form
Right.
with some of this stuff. So yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I
these
mean
are
it's a personal thing. I mean, at some points I get into like really hard stuff because I just like really feel like it. But then there are times where I'm just like for now I'm like just now I decided like hey I want to just go back and revisit flops because it's easy. And I was like thinking about do I do blind versus blind play, which sounds super hard, three bet pots, which sounds really hard. Just like fuck, I'm not interested in that. So I'm just gonna do flops because it's going to be pretty easy for me and I can make some nice progress and it's an important area. So getting a feel for that stuff, um, which I guess is something we can talk about more. And I'm interested in how this goes and like just want like honest feedback. I'm not going to be like, fuck Josh, you suck. You didn't do the work. You're terrible. Like just about getting feedback and helping you out with that process.
yeah. I mean, I guess what I would expect someone from your vantage point to say if it was clear that I didn't do the work would be why didn't you do the work? Like, are you sure you want this? Like, what is blocking you from doing that, right?
Hmm.
Um, so I think I'm not ruling it out that it's not a possibility that maybe I would get stuck and I would come to the next session and I would say, I'm sorry, we need to go back over this, right?
Right.
Like, I think that could happen, especially if it gets to the point where I'm running PyOSolver simulations on my own and stuff, and I'm
Right.
like, I don't know if I structured this right at all or something like that. So
Well, I think you'll end up doing these and enjoying them. I think you'll enjoy like seeing the improvement and all that. It's like I think it's a really solid exercise. So I don't think you'll have any of those problems, but I'm curious how it goes and all that, and I definitely want to talk about it.
okay.
All right. So
So we've got some good exercises here. Um, just thinking about like next week and all. Oh, I guess by the way, should we basically wrap up, or was there some like I have time if there's something else you wanted to explore, but
no,
I'm also
I'm
cool with
I'm
calling
too
it.
fucking
Yeah.
tired. So
Okay. No worries. So yeah, so next week, I guess we can stop the recording.